The night Nathaniel Hayes held a loaded gun to his temple, his 8-year-old son was sleeping 3 doors down the hall. Nobody knew the billionaire CEO had reached his breaking point, not his board, not the media that called him the Ice King, not even the cleaning staff who found him collapsed in his office at 3 a.m. The weapon wasn't what saved him. It was the sound of small footsteps in the hallway, a child's voice calling "Daddy" through the darkness. This is the story of a man who had everything and nothing, and the woman who accidentally walked into his life when both of them had stopped believing in second chances. If you stay until the end of this story, drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this journey has traveled. Hit that like button, and let's begin. The Denver skyline looked like broken glass against the November storm, each building a jagged reflection of wealth that meant absolutely nothing to Nathaniel Hayes anymore. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office on the 42nd floor, watching ice accumulate on the ledge outside. The view cost him $12 million when he'd purchased this entire floor 15 years ago. Back then, he'd believed height equaled success. Distance equaled safety. He'd been spectacularly wrong about both. "Mr. Hayes?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your son's school called again, 3rd time this week." Nathaniel didn't turn from the window. What happened? "Liam got into another fight during recess. They're requesting you pick him up personally this time. The headmaster said it's urgent." The word urgent had lost all meaning to Nathaniel. Everything was urgent in his world. Quarterly earnings reports, board meetings, hostile takeover attempts, patent lawsuits. His company, Hayes Technologies, had grown into a $9 billion empire specializing in cybersecurity infrastructure, and every single day someone wanted a piece of it. But his 8-year-old son getting into fights? That was a different kind of urgent, the kind he kept failing to address. "Tell them I'll be there in 40 minutes, Nathaniel said. "You have the Reynolds merger presentation at 2. Reschedule it." Silence on the other end. In 5 years, Nathaniel Hayes had never rescheduled a meeting for personal reasons. His assistant didn't know how to process the information. "Right away, sir." Nathaniel grabbed his suit jacket from the leather chair and headed toward the private elevator. His reflection caught in the polished chrome doors, 6'2", dark hair going silver at the temples, expensive suit that hung slightly loose because he kept forgetting to eat. 32 years old and looking 40. The media had nicknamed him the Ice King 3 years ago after a journalist asked him about work-life balance, and he'd responded, "Life is work." The quote had gone viral. People thought it was badass. They didn't realize it was just the truth from a man who'd forgotten how to be anything else. The drive to Liam's private academy took 23 minutes through downtown traffic. Nathaniel spent it reviewing emails on his phone, barely noticing the freezing rain hammering against the windshield of his Mercedes. His driver Marcus navigated silently. They'd worked together long enough that Marcus knew when conversation was unwelcome. Denver Preparatory Academy sat behind iron gates in one of the city's wealthiest neighborhoods. Tuition cost more than most people's annual salary. The building looked like a small Ivy League campus, all red brick and manicured lawns that were currently buried under early snow. Nathaniel walked through the main entrance and was immediately greeted by Mrs. Peterson, the headmaster's secretary. She had that particular expression adults wore when dealing with a parent they pitied and resented in equal measure. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming. Headmaster Whitmore is waiting in his office with Liam." The hallway smelled like floor polish and old money. Nathaniel passed bulletin boards covered in student artwork and achievement certificates, none of which featured his son's name. Liam had been at this school for 2 years and remained essentially invisible, except when he was getting into trouble. Headmaster Whitmore stood when Nathaniel entered. The office was designed to intimidate: dark wood paneling, leather furniture, frame degrees from Princeton and Oxford. Liam sat in an oversized chair near the window, his small frame making the furniture look enormous. He had his mother's features: delicate bone structure, light brown hair, eyes that shifted between green and gray depending on his mood. Right now they were storm cloud gray. His uniform shirt was torn at the collar, and there was a fresh bruise forming along his jaw. Nathaniel felt something crack inside his chest. "Liam, are you hurt?" His son didn't look at him. "I'm fine." "Mr. Hayes," Whitmore began, settling behind his desk with practiced authority, "I'm afraid this incident is more serious than previous altercations. Liam attacked another student without provocation during recess. The other boy required medical attention for a bloody nose. He was lying, Liam said quietly. Liam. Whitmore's tone carried a warning. What was he lying about? Nathaniel asked. Whitmore looked uncomfortable. The specifics are irrelevant. What matters is that Liam used physical violence instead of reporting the issue to a teacher. This is the 4th incident this semester. We've been patient, Mr. Hayes, but Denver Prep has a zero-tolerance policy regarding fighting. Nathaniel studied his son. Liam was staring at his shoes, jaw clenched, hands balled into small fists. He looked like a miniature version of Nathaniel himself, all that anger with nowhere to put it. What did the other boy say? Nathaniel asked again. Dad, it doesn't matter. It matters to me. Liam finally looked up. Those gray-green eyes were bright with tears he was fighting not to shed. He said Mom left because she didn't want to live with us anymore. He said that's why she died, because she was trying to get away. The room went silent. Nathaniel felt the words like physical blows. Catherine had died in a car accident 4 years ago during a business trip to Seattle. Sudden. Random. A semi-truck losing control on a rain-slicked highway. She'd been attending a medical conference. She was a pediatric surgeon, brilliant and warm and everything Nathaniel wasn't. And some entitled little bastard had told his grieving son that she'd died running away. I see, Nathaniel said quietly. Whitmore shifted in his chair. Mr. Hayes, I understand this is sensitive, but our students need to learn conflict resolution through proper channels. He's 8 years old. Someone told him his dead mother abandoned him. What proper channel addresses that? Nevertheless, I'll be withdrawing Liam from Denver Prep effective immediately. Whitmore blinked. Mr. Hayes, surely we can discuss... There's nothing to discuss. I'll have my attorney contact you regarding any administrative details. Nathaniel stood and looked at his son. Get your things. Liam scrambled out of the chair, clearly shocked. They walked out of the office together in silence, past Mrs. Peterson's surprised face, through hallways full of privileged children who would never understand what it meant to lose everything that mattered. In the parking lot, freezing rain had turned to snow. Nathaniel opened the back door of the Mercedes for Liam, then slid in beside him instead of taking his usual position in the front passenger seat. Marcus knew better than to ask questions. He simply started driving. Where are we going? Liam asked. Nathaniel realized he had no idea. Home was a 15,000-square-foot mansion in Cherry Creek that echoed with absence. Work was impossible now. Everything felt impossible. Where do you want to go? He asked. Liam looked at him like this was a trap. In fairness, it probably was. Nathaniel couldn't remember the last time he'd asked his son what he wanted. Can we get burgers? Liam's voice was small. Not the fancy kind. Regular ones. Marcus, Nathaniel said, find us somewhere that serves burgers. They ended up at a diner off Colfax Avenue, the kind of place that smelled like grease and coffee and had booths with cracked vinyl seats. Nathaniel hadn't been in a restaurant like this since college. Liam ordered a cheeseburger and chocolate milkshake with the focused intensity of someone making the most important decision of their life. Nathaniel ordered coffee he didn't drink and watched his son eat. I'm sorry, Liam said eventually, ketchup on his chin. About the fight. Don't apologize for defending your mother's memory. But I got in trouble again. That school was wrong for you anyway. Liam studied him carefully. Are you mad at me? The question hit harder than it should have. No, I'm mad at myself. Why? Because I've failed you every single day since your mother died. Because I turned into a machine that only knows how to make money and close deals. Because I look at you and see everything I've lost instead of everything I still have. Because I should have known you weren't happy there, Nathaniel said instead. They ate in silence for a while. Outside the diner windows, Denver looked gray and cold. People rushed past with their heads down against the snow, everyone isolated in their own private struggles. Dad? Liam's voice was quiet. Do you think Mom would be disappointed in us? The question knocked the air from Nathaniel's lungs. Catherine used to make pancakes every Saturday morning. She'd sing off-key while cooking and make terrible puns that made Liam giggle. She'd drag Nathaniel away from his laptop and force him to play board games. She'd filled their house with light and laughter and chaos. When she died, all of that died with her. I think, Nathaniel said carefully, Your mother would want us to be happy. I don't think we've been doing a very good job of that. I miss her, Liam whispered. Me too. It was the first honest conversation they'd had in months, maybe years. And it was happening in a cheap diner where the coffee was terrible and the seats were held together with duct tape. Nathaniel's phone buzzed. Then again, and again, the world demanding his attention, but he turned it off and slid it into his pocket. Tell me what else has been bothering you at school, he said. Liam's eyes went wide. Really? Really? So Liam talked. About teachers who praised him for being quiet and well-behaved when really he was just lonely. About kids who only wanted to be friends because of his last name. About how none of the adults at school seemed to notice he spent every recess sitting alone reading books. Nathaniel listened and felt his heart breaking with every word. When had he stopped knowing his own son? They stayed in that diner for 2 hours. Marcus waited patiently in the parking lot. The Hayes Technologies board probably thought their CEO had been kidnapped. Nathaniel didn't care. By the time they left, the snow had intensified into a full storm. The drive home took 40 minutes through whiteout conditions. The mansion loomed against the darkening sky like something from a Gothic novel, all stone and glass and architectural ambition. Nathaniel had bought it when Hayes Technologies went public, thinking his family needed space and security. Now it just felt like a very expensive tomb. Inside, their housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, was preparing dinner in the kitchen. She'd been with them since Liam was a baby, one of the few people Nathaniel trusted completely. You're home early, she said, surprised. Is everything all right? Liam's switching schools, Nathaniel said. We'll need to start looking at alternatives tomorrow. Mrs. Chen glanced at Liam's torn shirt and bruised jaw but didn't comment. I'll make some calls. Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. Liam headed upstairs to his room. Nathaniel stood in the massive marble foyer looking at a house that cost $8 million and felt completely empty. His phone buzzed again. He'd turned it back on during the drive home, and now messages were flooding in. Jennifer, executive assistant. Board meeting moved to tomorrow 8 a.m. They're not happy. Richard, COO. We need to talk about the Donovan acquisition. Call me. Legal. Contract issues with the Singapore office. Urgent. Nathaniel deleted them all. He found Liam in his bedroom, changed out of his uniform and lying on his bed staring at the ceiling. The room was neat and impersonal, expensive furniture, educational posters, shelves full of books that looked barely touched. Hey, Nathaniel said from the doorway. Hey, can I come in? Liam sat up, surprised again. Nathaniel couldn't remember the last time he'd asked permission to enter his son's room. He sat on the edge of the bed. I've been thinking. About what? About how I've been handling things, or not handling them. Nathaniel chose his words carefully. After your mom died, I thought if I just kept working, kept busy, eventually the pain would stop. But it doesn't work that way. Liam picked at his bedspread. Does it ever stop hurting? I don't know, but I think it hurts more when you're alone. I'm not alone. I have you. Do you? The question came out harsher than Nathaniel intended. Because I've been so busy running a company that I forgot to actually be your father. You're always busy. That's just how it is. It doesn't have to be. Liam looked at him skeptically. You're going to stop working? I'm going to try to find balance, starting now. What does that mean? Nathaniel had no idea. He'd built his entire adult life around Hayes Technologies. The company had been his dream, his purpose, his escape. Stepping back felt impossible. But looking at his son, this small, lonely boy who'd gotten into a fight defending his mother's memory, made the impossible seem necessary. It means, Nathaniel said slowly, I need help. The kind of help I should have asked for years ago. Oh. The idea came to him at 2 a.m., which was when most of Nathaniel's ideas arrived, during the dark hours when sleep remained elusive and his mind raced through problems like a computer processing code. He needed someone who could help reorganize his life. Not just his work schedule, but the entire chaotic structure that had left his son fighting classmates and himself standing at office windows contemplating the fall. Not a typical executive assistant, not a nanny. Something else entirely. A consultant specializing in work-life integration for executives. Someone who could audit his complete existence and tell him where he'd gone catastrophically wrong. Nathaniel spent 3 hours researching firms, reading reviews, checking credentials. Most specialized in corporate restructuring. A few focused on family therapy. None combined both worlds. Then he found Victoria Reed's name in an article about startup culture and founder burnout. The piece was from Forbes, profiling young tech CEOs who'd nearly destroyed themselves building companies. Victoria's photo showed a woman in her late 20s with dark hair pulled back, sharp cheekbones, and eyes that looked exhausted but intelligent. The article said she'd founded a tech consulting firm called Meridian Solutions at age 26, grown it to 15 employees and $3 million in revenue, then watched it nearly collapse when her business partner embezzled funds and disappeared. Rather than declare bankruptcy, Victoria had restructured everything, paid back investors, rebuilt from scratch. Now she ran a smaller, leaner operation focused on helping other founders avoid the same mistakes. The article quoted her, "I learned the hard way that you can't build a sustainable company on an unsustainable life. They collapse together." Nathaniel read the quote 3 times. Then he had his assistant Jennifer track down Victoria's contact information and schedule a meeting. The meeting was set for 2 p.m. on Thursday at Hayes Technologies headquarters. Nathaniel had it scheduled as a charity partnership discussion to avoid questions from his staff about why he was meeting with a startup consultant. Victoria Reed arrived 15 minutes early. Nathaniel watched from his office as she entered the main lobby, tall, maybe 5'8", wearing a gray blazer and black pants that were professional but not expensive. She carried a leather portfolio that had seen better days and walked with the careful confidence of someone who'd trained themselves not to look intimidated. Then she slipped. The marble floor had just been cleaned. A maintenance worker was still setting up warning signs when Victoria stepped directly onto the wet surface. Her feet went out from under her in one of those horrible slow-motion moments that seemed to suspend in air. She hit hard. Nathaniel was moving before he consciously decided to. He crossed the lobby in seconds, kneeling beside where Victoria had fallen. "Don't move," he said. "Are you hurt?" She looked up at him with stunned brown eyes. "I'm fine. Just, God, that was embarrassing." The floor should have been marked better. Nathaniel shot a look at the maintenance worker, who went pale. "This is a liability issue." "Really? I'm okay." Victoria started to push herself up, then winced. "You're not okay. Where does it hurt?" "My wrist. But it's probably just bruised." Nathaniel was already calling for building security. Within minutes, they had ice and a first aid kit. Victoria protested the entire time, her face flushed with humiliation. "This is completely unnecessary," she said. "I just need a minute. You need medical attention. I'm calling my personal physician." "For a bruised wrist?" "You could have fractured something. Hairline breaks don't always present immediately." She stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "Do you always go this overboard for strangers who fall in your lobby?" "I don't," Nathaniel admitted. "But I also don't usually schedule meetings with people. Watch them get injured on my property, and then ignore it." "I'm supposed to be meeting with Nathaniel Hayes about a charity partnership. I'm guessing that's you?" "It is." "Then this is a terrible first impression." But she smiled slightly, and Nathaniel noticed she had a small scar through her left eyebrow that gave her face character. "You're Victoria Reed, Meridian Solutions." Her smile faded. "You know who I am?" "I read the Forbes article about your company restructuring." "Oh, that." She looked away. "Great. So you know about the embezzlement and bankruptcy scare, really selling myself here." "Actually, I'm impressed you survived it." She glanced back at him, surprise flickering across her face. "Most people aren't. Most people haven't built anything worth destroying." They held eye contact for a moment longer than necessary. Nathaniel became aware that he was still kneeling on the marble floor beside her, his hand on her shoulder to steady her. He pulled back. "Can you stand?" he asked. "Yes." Victoria got to her feet carefully, testing her wrist. She winced but kept her expression neutral. "See? Fine." She wasn't fine. Her wrist was already swelling. But Nathaniel recognized the stubborn pride of someone who'd learned to push through pain because stopping meant admitting weakness. He'd done the same thing for years. "Let me reschedule this meeting," he said. "After you've seen a doctor, sah." "No." Victoria's voice was sharp. "I'm here. I cleared my entire afternoon for this. And honestly, I need whatever charity partnership or consulting gig you're offering. My company is barely breaking even and I have... She stopped herself. I need the work, so please, can we just do the meeting? There was something raw in her voice, something desperate that she was trying to hide behind professionalism. Nathaniel made a decision that would change everything. Come upstairs, he said. Does he... His private office occupied the entire northwest corner of the 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the Rocky Mountains in the distance, currently obscured by storm clouds. Victoria tried not to gawk at the luxury. She'd clearly been in executive suites before, but this was different. This was wealth on a scale that most people couldn't comprehend. Nathaniel gestured to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. Sit. How's your wrist? Throbbing but manageable. She cradled it against her chest. So, charity partnership? That was a lie to avoid questions from my staff. She went very still. Excuse me? I'm not looking for a charity partnership. I'm looking for help restructuring my life before it collapses completely. Victoria stared at him. I don't understand. Nathaniel sat down across from her. Up close, he could see the exhaustion etched into her features, shadows under her eyes, fine lines of stress around her mouth. She was probably his age, maybe younger, but looked like she'd aged a decade in recent years. He recognized that look. He saw it in his mirror every morning. I read about your company restructuring, Nathaniel said, about how you rebuilt after your partner's betrayal. The article said you focused on sustainable business models and preventing founder burnout. That's true, but my clients are usually startups and small tech companies, not... She gestured around the office. Not $9 billion corporations. I'm not hiring you for Hayes Technologies. I'm hiring you for me. I still don't understand. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair. He'd spent 3 hours preparing for this meeting, but now that Victoria was here, injured, wary, clearly struggling with her own problems, the carefully rehearsed pitch felt wrong. So he told her the truth instead. My son got expelled from school yesterday for fighting. I realized I don't actually know him anymore. I work 80-hour weeks, sleep 4 hours a night, and can't remember the last time I ate a meal that wasn't delivered to my desk. My company is successful, but my life is a disaster. He paused. And yesterday, for about 30 seconds, I seriously considered whether anyone would notice if I disappeared. The office went silent. Victoria's expression shifted from confusion to something softer. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. You're not looking for a business consultant, she said quietly. You're looking for a life raft. Yes. Why me? There are therapists, life coaches, family counselors, because you've been where I am. You built something, watched it nearly destroy you, and found a way back. Nathaniel met her eyes. I need someone who understands what it's like to sacrifice everything for success and realize the sacrifice wasn't worth it. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. What exactly are you proposing? She asked finally. A consulting contract. 6 months, renewable. You help me reorganize my schedule, my priorities, my relationship with my son. You audit my life the same way you'd audit a failing company and tell me what needs to change. That's not what I do. It's exactly what you do. You just haven't applied it to an individual person before. She smiled slightly. You're persistent. I'm desperate. There's a difference. What kind of compensation are we talking about? Nathaniel named a figure that made Victoria's eyes widen. It was probably triple what her entire company earned in a quarter. That's insane, she said. That's market rate for someone saving my life. I haven't agreed to save your life. But you're considering it. She was. He could see it in the way she sat forward slightly, the way her fingers drummed against her injured wrist, the way her eyes darted around the office, calculating. I have conditions, Victoria said. Name them. First, I need flexibility. I have other commitments I can't abandon. Done. Second, you have to actually listen to my recommendations. I'm not interested in being hired as window dressing while you ignore everything I say. Agreed. Third, she hesitated. I need some of the payment up front. I have financial obligations that can't wait 6 months. There was a story there. Nathaniel filed it away to investigate later. I can have a contract with a 30% signing bonus ready by tomorrow morning, he said. Victoria studied him carefully. Why do I get the feeling this is going to be significantly more complicated than you're making it sound? Because you're intelligent and observant. Flattery isn't going to work on me, Mr. Hayes. Nathaniel, and I'm not flattering you, I'm stating facts. She stood up, testing her wrist again. I need to think about it. Take 24 hours. But Victoria? He stood as well. Whatever you're running from, whatever debt or obligation is making you desperate enough to consider this, I can help with that too. Her expression shuddered. You don't know anything about me. I know you're scared. I know you're exhausted. I know you walked into this meeting hoping for a small charity consulting gig and got offered something much bigger and stranger. He paused. I also know you're going to say yes. You sound very certain. Because we're the same. We're both drowning and pretending we're fine. The only difference is I'm finally admitting I need help. Victoria grabbed her portfolio with her good hand. At the office door, she turned back. The Forbes article didn't mention everything, she said quietly. My business partner didn't just embezzle money. He was my fiancé. He stole from me, destroyed my company, and disappeared 3 weeks before our wedding. So if you're looking for someone who has their life figured out, I'm not it. I'm not looking for someone who has it figured out, Nathaniel said. I'm looking for someone who survived anyway. Their eyes held. 24 hours, Victoria said. Then she left. Nathaniel stood at the window and watched the storm continue to batter Denver. For the first time in years, he felt something other than numbness. Hope, maybe. Or just the recognition that another broken person might understand his particular kind of breaking. His phone buzzed. Jennifer, with another urgent message. Another crisis. Another reason to keep working until his mind went blank and the pain stayed buried. Nathaniel ignored it. Instead, he left his office, rode the elevator down to the parking garage, and drove home in the middle of the afternoon while his entire staff watched in shock. Liam was in the living room doing homework with Mrs. Chen. Hey, Dad, he said, surprised. You're home early again. I am. How was your day? Weird. I don't have school anymore. We'll fix that. In the meantime, what do you want for dinner? Liam exchanged a glance with Mrs. Chen. Whatever? That's not an answer. What do you actually want? His son's face lit up slowly. Can we make pizza? Like homemade? I have no idea how to make pizza. Mrs. Chen knows. She taught Mom. The mention of Catherine didn't hurt quite as much as usual. Maybe because Liam said it naturally, like she was still part of their lives in small ways. Then let's learn, Nathaniel said. They spent the next 3 hours in the kitchen making pizza from scratch. Nathaniel was terrible at it. The dough kept sticking to his hands. He put way too much sauce on. His cheese distribution was chaotic. Liam laughed at him. Actual, real laughter that echoed through the enormous kitchen and made the whole mansion feel less empty. Mrs. Chen supervised, occasionally stepping in to prevent complete disaster, but mostly letting them figure it out together. The pizza was lumpy and uneven and slightly burnt on one side. It was the best meal Nathaniel had eaten in years. Later, after Liam was asleep, Nathaniel sat in his study and opened his laptop. He drafted an email to his board announcing he'd be reducing his hours and delegating more responsibilities to his executive team. He didn't send it yet. But knowing it was there, ready to go, felt like progress. His phone buzzed at 11 p.m. Unknown number. Victoria Reed. I'll take the job. But we need to establish boundaries immediately, and I want everything in writing. Also, I'm going to be brutally honest with you, which you'll probably hate. Still interested? Nathaniel smiled at his phone, the first genuine smile in recent memory. Nathaniel Hayes. Still interested. Welcome to the disaster. Start Monday? Victoria Reed. See you Monday, and get some sleep. You're going to need it. He did sleep that night. Not well, and not for long. But for the first time in 4 years, Nathaniel Hayes went to bed thinking about tomorrow instead of drowning in yesterday. Victoria Reed arrived at the Hayes mansion at exactly 8 a.m. on Monday morning, which meant she'd been awake since 5, running through worst-case scenarios and questioning every life choice that had led her to this moment. The house, if you could call it that, looked like something from an architecture magazine. All clean lines and expensive stone, set back from the street behind gates that probably cost more than her car. She'd looked up the property value over the weekend. $8 million. The number had made her physically ill. She pressed the intercom button. Ms. Reed? A woman's voice, warm but professional. Come on in. I'm Mrs. Chen. The gate swung open silently. Victoria drove her 10-year-old Honda up the circular driveway, acutely aware of how out of place it looked next to the Mercedes and Range Rover parked near the garage. The front door opened before she could knock. Mrs. Chen was maybe 60, with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a neat bun and kind eyes that took in Victoria's appearance. Professional blazer, laptop bag, wrist still wrapped in an elastic bandage, with a single efficient glance. You must be the consultant, Mrs. Chen said. Mr. Hayes is in his study. I'll show you. Thank you. Victoria followed her through a foyer with marble floors and a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a hotel. Everything was pristine and expensive and completely devoid of personality. No family photos, no mail scattered on tables, no signs that actual humans lived here. It felt like a museum. Mrs. Chen led her down a hallway to a set of double doors. Fair warning, she said quietly. He's been in there since 6, already on his second pot of coffee and third conference call. So much for reduced hours, Victoria muttered. Mrs. Chen smiled slightly. Exactly. Good luck. She knocked and opened the door without waiting for a response. Nathaniel sat behind a massive desk, laptop open, phone to his ear, looking exactly like he had in his office. Expensive suit, exhausted eyes, that particular tension that came from holding too much together with pure willpower. He glanced up and held up one finger. Wait, I don't care what the legal team in Singapore thinks, he said into the phone. The contract terms are non-negotiable. If they want to walk, let them walk. Pause. No, Richard, we're not compromising on the data security provisions. That's the entire point of... Another pause, longer this time. His jaw clenched. Then tell them I'll fly there myself and renegotiate in person. I built this company on security infrastructure. I'm not selling out our core values because some VP is worried about quarterly margins. Victoria watched him work. This was the Ice King the media talked about. Cold, decisive, completely uncompromising. But she could see the cost of it and the way his free hand kept clenching into a fist, the muscle jumping in his jaw, the barely controlled fury in his voice. We're done discussing this, Nathaniel said. Handle it, or I will. He hung up without saying goodbye. Silence filled the study. That sounded productive, Victoria said. Nathaniel looked at her, and something in his expression softened slightly. You came. I signed a contract. I keep my commitments. So I'm learning. He stood up, and Victoria noticed he looked like he'd slept even less than she had. Coffee? Please? He poured from a carafe on the sideboard, expensive china, probably worth more than her monthly rent. She accepted the cup and sat in one of the leather chairs facing his desk. So, Nathaniel said, settling back into his own chair. Where do we start? We start with honesty. You've already broken your promise. He blinked. Excuse me? You told me you wanted to reduce your hours and reprioritize. You've been working since 6 a.m. It's Monday morning and you're already screaming at executives in Singapore. I wasn't screaming. You were barely controlled fury, which is worse. And you're on your second pot of coffee, which tells me you either didn't sleep or slept badly. Victoria pulled out her laptop. I told you I'd be brutally honest. Here it is. You're not actually ready to change. You just feel guilty about your son. The temperature in the room dropped about 10 degrees. You've known me for 5 minutes, Nathaniel said quietly. You don't know what I'm ready for. Then prove me wrong. Tell me what time you went to bed last night. That's not relevant. It's completely relevant. What time? He looked away. 1:30. And what time did you wake up? 5. 3.5 hours of sleep. When did you last take a full weekend off? Silence. When did you last eat breakfast? And coffee doesn't count. More silence. Victoria leaned forward. Here's what I see. A man who's excellent at running a billion-dollar company and terrible at being a human being. You've optimized yourself into a machine, and now you want me to reprogram you back into a person without actually stopping the machine. That's not... It is, and I get it. I did the same thing. She set her coffee down. After Damien destroyed my company, I worked 20-hour days for 6 months straight, barely ate, barely slept. Told myself I was rebuilding when really I was just running from how much it hurt. Nathaniel's expression shifted. What made you stop? I collapsed during a pitch meeting. Literal fainting. Woke up in an ER with severe dehydration and exhaustion. Victoria smiled without humor. Turns out you can't build anything sustainable on a foundation of spite and insomnia. So what did you do? I got help, therapy, actual sleep. I learned to delegate. I stopped measuring my worth by how many hours I worked. She met his eyes. And I had to admit that some of the pain was never going to go away. I just had to learn to live with it. The study went quiet again. Outside the windows, Victoria could see a sprawling backyard with a pool and what looked like a tennis court. Luxury everywhere, but it all felt empty. I don't know how to do that, Nathaniel said finally. The pain part. I know. That's why I'm here. Before he could respond, the study door burst open. A small boy stood in the doorway. Liam, Victoria assumed. He had his father's sharp features, but his eyes were different, lighter, more open. He wore pajamas with dinosaurs on them and held a book in one hand. Dad, Mrs. Chen says you have a meeting and I can't... He stopped, noticing Victoria. Oh, sorry. It's fine. Nathaniel's entire demeanor changed. The Ice King disappeared, replaced by something awkward and uncertain. Liam, this is Victoria Reed. She's going to be working with us for a while. Hi, Liam said shyly. Hi yourself. Nice dinosaur pajamas. He looked down at them. They're kind of babyish, but they're comfortable. Comfort is underrated, Victoria said seriously. I have pajamas with pizza slices on them. Sometimes comfort beats cool. Liam smiled slightly. It transformed his whole face. Nathaniel watched them interact with an expression Victoria couldn't quite read. What are you reading? She asked. Liam held up the book. The Phantom Toll Booth. It's about this kid who drives through a magical toll booth and ends up in a world where everything is weird. I love that book. The doldrums are my favorite part. Really? Most people like the Island of Conclusions. The Island of Conclusions is fine, but the doldrums are more honest. Sometimes you just feel stuck and gray and nothing seems interesting. Liam studied her with sudden intensity. Yeah, exactly. Liam, Nathaniel interrupted gently, Victoria and I are working right now. Actually, Victoria said, I'd like to talk to Liam, if that's okay. Father and son both looked surprised. Why? Liam asked. Because your dad hired me to help reorganize his life, and you're the most important part of it. So I need to understand what's actually happening in this house. I'm 8. I don't know anything about business. Good. I'm not asking about business. Nathaniel looked uncertain. Victoria, I don't think... 8-ball. You hired me to be honest, remember? This is me being honest. I can't help fix something if I don't understand what's broken. She turned to Liam. What do you say? Want to show me your room? Liam glanced at his father, who looked like he wanted to object, but couldn't figure out how. Okay, Liam said finally. Victoria stood and followed the 8-year-old out of the study. Behind her, she could feel Nathaniel's tension radiating like heat. Liam's bedroom was on the second floor, overlooking the backyard. It was huge and impersonal, expensive furniture, matching curtains, shelves full of books arranged by size rather than interest. It looked like a hotel room designed for a child, not a space where an actual kid lived. Nice room, Victoria lied. It's too big, Liam said immediately, and it's boring. So why not change it? Dad hired a decorator. She said this was age-appropriate and sophisticated. Victoria sat on the edge of his bed. Can I be honest with you? Okay. This room sucks. It looks like a furniture catalog, not like someone actually lives here. Liam's eyes went wide. Then he laughed. Yeah, it really does. What would you want if you could design it yourself? He thought about it. More books, not organized weird, just there. And maybe posters. I like space stuff, stars and planets. That sounds better than sophisticated. Liam sat next to her on the bed, swinging his legs. Are you really here to help my dad? I'm going to try. Why? You think he needs help? He works all the time. Even when he's home, he's not really here. He's thinking about work. Does that bother you? Liam was quiet for a moment. I used to get mad about it. Now I'm just used to it, I guess. That's actually worse than being mad. Why? Because mad means you still expect things to change. Used to it means you've given up. He looked at her with those gray-green eyes. My mom used to make him stop working. She'd hide his phone sometimes, made him play board games with us. Your dad told me about her. I'm sorry. Everyone says that, but it doesn't help. There was no bitterness in his voice, just fact. You're right. It doesn't. What would help? Liam thought about it. I don't know. Maybe if Dad was just here, like actually here, not just in the house. Victoria felt something crack in her chest. This kid had articulated in 10 seconds what she'd spent years learning in therapy. I'm going to tell you a secret, she said. Adults are mostly just faking it. We don't have everything figured out. We're scared and confused and making it up as we go. My dad doesn't seem scared. Your dad is terrified. He just hides it better than most people. Liam considered this. Are you scared? Constantly. Of what? Lots of things. Failing, being alone, not being good enough. Victoria smiled slightly. Pretty much everything. But you're a grown-up. You run a company. Running a company doesn't make you brave. It just means you're good at pretending. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. I like you, Liam said finally. You talk to me like I'm normal. You are normal. You're just stuck in a very abnormal situation. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you going to leave? Everyone always leaves eventually. The question hit Victoria harder than she expected. She thought about Damien, about her parents who'd died when she was 23, about every person who'd promised to stay and then disappeared. I don't know what's going to happen, she said honestly, but I signed a 6-month contract and I keep my promises. So for at least 6 months, I'm here. Okay. Okay? Yeah, that's better than most people. Liam picked up his book. Do you want to see the rest of the house? It's really big and really boring, Victoria laughed. Lead the way. They spent the next hour exploring. Liam showed her the empty rooms nobody used, the pool nobody swam in, the library full of books nobody read. The house was a monument to wealth and absence. Finally, they ended up in the kitchen, where Mrs. Chen was preparing lunch. You two look like you've been conspiring, she said. Just touring, Victoria said. This place is enormous. Too enormous, Mrs. Chen agreed. Mr. Hayes bought it thinking a family needs space. Turns out families need connection, not square footage. How long have you worked here? Since Liam was a baby, 10 years now. She started chopping vegetables with practiced efficiency. I watched everything fall apart after Mrs. Hayes died. Watched Mr. Hayes turn into a ghost who just happens to pay bills. Mrs. Chen tells it like it is, Liam said. Dad says it's her superpower. Someone has to, Mrs. Chen said. And since you're here to fix things, Ms. Reed, you should know what you're dealing with. This family is broken, not damaged. Broken. They need more than a consultant. They need a miracle. I don't do miracles, Victoria said. Just honest assessment and practical solutions. Good. Miracles are overrated anyway. Mrs. Chen pointed her knife at Victoria. But I'm warning you. Mr. Hayes will resist every change. He'll agree to new schedules and then ignore them. He'll promise to be home for dinner and then call from the office. He's a good man drowning in guilt, and drowning people fight their rescuers. I've noticed. Then you're smarter than the last 3 therapists he hired and ignored. Victoria blinked. There were therapists? 4, actually, all very qualified, all quit within 2 months because he wouldn't engage. Mrs. Chen started sautéing the vegetables. So, whatever your strategy is, make sure it accounts for stubbornness. Before Victoria could respond, Nathaniel appeared in the kitchen doorway. There you are, he said. I've been looking everywhere. We've been exploring, Liam said. Victoria says my room looks like a furniture catalog. Nathaniel's expression flickered. Does she? In fairness, Victoria said, Liam agreed with me. I see. And how many other aspects of my life have you critiqued in the past hour? There was an edge to his voice. Victoria recognized it, the defensiveness of someone who'd been exposed. Just the ones that needed it, she said calmly. They stared at each other across the kitchen. Mrs. Chen and Liam watched like spectators at a tennis match. Can we talk? Nathaniel said. Privately? Sure. He led her back to his study and closed the door with more force than necessary. You're overstepping, he said immediately. I'm doing exactly what you hired me to do. I hired you to help with my schedule and work-life balance, not to interrogate my son and criticize my house. Your son is part of your life. Your house is part of your life. You can't compartmentalize this. I can do whatever I want. I'm paying you. Victoria crossed her arms. You want to fire me? Go ahead. Send me home. But we both know you won't, because then you'll have to admit you're not actually ready to change anything. Nathaniel's jaw clenched. You've been here 3 hours and you think you know everything about my life? I know that your son has given up expecting you to be present. I know this house is a mausoleum full of expensive things that don't mean anything. I know you're exhausted and angry and scared, and you've been running on adrenaline and guilt for so long you've forgotten what normal feels like. You don't know anything about... I know because I've been there. Victoria's voice rose. I spent 6 months after Damien left trying to prove I was fine by working myself into the ground. I know what it looks like when someone is desperately holding everything together while falling apart inside. The study went silent. Nathaniel turned to the window, his back to her. I don't know how to stop. I know. The company needs me, the board, the investors, the company will survive without you micromanaging every decision. Your son won't. He turned back to face her. That's not fair. No, but it's true. They stood there, two people who'd built walls so high they'd forgotten how to let anyone in. What do you want me to do? Nathaniel asked finally. I want you to take the rest of the day off. I can't just... Yes, you can. Delegate. Tell your assistant to clear your schedule. Spend the afternoon with Liam doing something that has nothing to do with work or productivity or achievement. Like what? I don't know. What is he like? Nathaniel looked genuinely lost. Books? Then go to a bookstore. Let him pick out whatever he wants. Don't make it educational or improving. Just let him choose. That's it? That's your professional recommendation? For today? Yes. You need to remember what it feels like to just be his father, not a CEO who happens to have a kid. Nathaniel rubbed his face. He looked exhausted. And what will you be doing? Documenting everything I've observed and creating a preliminary assessment, then going home to deal with my own mess. What mess? Victoria hesitated. She'd been careful not to share too much, but something about Nathaniel's raw honesty made her reciprocate. My sister, she said finally. She's 24. She moved to Denver 6 months ago after dropping out of grad school. She's been staying with me while she figures things out, which mostly means sleeping until noon and going through my groceries. Sounds difficult. She's all the family I have left, so I deal with it. The financial obligations you mentioned, that's her? Partly. Also debt from rebuilding my company. Also medical bills from when I collapsed. Victoria smiled without humor. Turns out emergency room visits are expensive, even with insurance. I could help. No. Her voice was sharp. I don't need charity. I need the job I was hired to do. Nathaniel nodded slowly. Fair enough. Victoria packed up her laptop. At the study door, she turned back. One more thing. Your son is smart and observant and desperately lonely, and he knows you're trying. That counts for something. Does it? It's better than nothing. She left before he could respond. Mrs. Chen was waiting in the hallway. That sounded intense, she said. He's resistant to change. Most people are, but if he listened to you, that's more than he's done for anyone else. Mrs. Chen smiled. Come back tomorrow, same time. You think I should? I think you're the first person in 4 years who's treated him like a human being instead of a billionaire. He needs that. Victoria walked to her car, feeling the weight of the morning settle over her. This job was going to be harder than she'd anticipated. Nathaniel Hayes wasn't just a workaholic CEO who needed better time management. He was a grieving father who'd forgotten how to live. And somehow, she was supposed to help fix that while her own life was barely holding together. Her phone buzzed as she pulled out of the driveway. Rachel, sister. Did you leave money for groceries? I'm completely out. Victoria. Check the envelope on the counter. Rachel. Can you pick up wine on your way home? I'm having people over. Victoria deleted the message without responding. At a red light, another text came through. Nathaniel. We went to the bookstore. Liam picked out 7 books about space and mythology. He talked the entire drive there. I forgot he could talk that much. Victoria. That's progress. Nathaniel, thank you for pushing. Victoria, that's what you're paying me for. Nathaniel, is it? She didn't know how to answer that, so she didn't. That night, Victoria came home to find her apartment full of her sister's friends, 20-somethings drinking cheap wine and playing music too loud. Rachel was laughing in the kitchen, completely unconcerned that Victoria had worked a 14-hour day. Hey, Rachel said brightly. How was the new job? Complicated. Well, you're home early for once. Stay and hang out. Victoria looked at the chaos. The empty bottles, the strangers on her couch, the life she couldn't afford but somehow kept paying for. I have work to do, she said. She locked herself in her bedroom and spent 3 hours writing up her initial assessment of Nathaniel Hayes. The document was blunt and unflinching. Subject demonstrates classic avoidant attachment patterns following spousal loss. Work has become maladaptive coping mechanism. Relationship with son characterized by emotional distance masked as provision of material needs. Subject intellectually understands problem but lacks practical tools for change. Prognosis uncertain. Success depends on willingness to tolerate discomfort of actual emotional engagement. She sent it to Nathaniel at midnight. His response came through at 12:47 a.m. Nathaniel, this reads like a psychological autopsy. Victoria, that's because it kind of is. You've been emotionally dead for 4 years. We're trying to revive you. Nathaniel, cheerful. Victoria, you hired me for honesty, not cheerfulness. Nathaniel, fair point. See you tomorrow? Victoria, 8 a.m. Don't be late. Nathaniel, it's my house. Victoria, and it's my time. Don't waste it. She fell asleep with her laptop still open, dreaming of empty mansions and drowning men who fought their rescuers. The next morning, Nathaniel was waiting for her in the kitchen when she arrived. He'd made coffee, terrible coffee, but the effort counted. Liam's at a new school today, he said. I enrolled him in a smaller program. Less prestigious, more focused on actual education. How'd you decide on it? I asked him what he wanted. Novel concept. Victoria smiled. Progress? Don't sound so surprised. They spent the morning going through his schedule, identifying what could be delegated and what actually required his attention. Nathaniel resisted every suggestion, then grudgingly admitted most of them made sense. Liam came home from school excited, talking about a science teacher who let them do experiments. Nathaniel listened with focused attention that looked uncomfortable but genuine. Victoria watched them together, this broken family trying to figure out how to be whole again, and felt something shift in her chest. Maybe Mrs. Chen was wrong. Maybe they didn't need a miracle. Maybe they just needed someone who refused to let them give up. 3 weeks into Victoria's contract, Nathaniel Hayes made it home for dinner 6 nights in a row. It felt like a small miracle until Victoria reminded him that normal parents did this every single night without expecting applause. You're very good at keeping my ego in check, he said over pizza on a Friday evening. They'd started a tradition, homemade pizza every Friday. Liam insisted on it, and Nathaniel had stopped arguing about things that made his son happy. Someone has to, Victoria said, stealing a piece of pepperoni from Liam's plate. Hey, Liam protested, but he was grinning. Victoria had been coming to the house 5 days a week, sometimes more. What had started as professional consulting had evolved into something harder to define. She reorganized Nathaniel's schedule, sat in on calls when he needed a reality check, and spent hours with Liam while Nathaniel worked through the meetings that actually required his attention. The house felt different now, less like a mausoleum, more like a place where people lived. Liam's room had been redecorated with posters of nebulas and galaxies. The formal dining room was abandoned in favor of the kitchen table. Mrs. Chen hummed while cooking again. Small changes. But they mattered. Victoria, can you help me with my science project? Liam asked, sauce on his chin. We have to build a model of the solar system, and I want to make it actually good, not just foam balls on sticks. Sure, what are you thinking? Maybe LEDs inside the planets? So they light up? Nathaniel watched them plan, feeling something unfamiliar stir in his chest. His son was animated and excited. Victoria listened with genuine interest, asking questions and suggesting ideas. When had his house started feeling like home again? Later, after Liam went to bed, Nathaniel found Victoria in his study reviewing quarterly reports he'd asked her to look at. She'd kicked off her shoes and was curled up in the leather chair, glasses perched on her nose, hair falling out of its professional twist. She looked tired. She always looked tired. "You don't have to do this tonight," he said. Victoria glanced up. "The reports? You asked me to—" "I know what I asked, but it's 8 p.m. on a Friday. You should go home." "I am home." She stopped, realizing what she'd said. "I mean, I'm here, working. This is work." But they both knew it had stopped being just work somewhere along the way. "How's your sister?" Nathaniel asked, settling into the chair across from her. Victoria's expression tightened. "Still figuring things out." "That's code for something." "It's code for she threw another party last night, and I came home to strangers passed out in my living room at 2 a.m. Victoria closed the laptop. "But that's my problem, not yours." "You could stay here." The words surprised both of them. "What?" Victoria said. "We have 6 empty bedrooms. You're here 12 hours a day anyway. It would be more convenient." Nathaniel realized how it sounded. "Purely professional. You'd have your own space." "That's not— I can't just move into your house." "Why not?" "Because it's weird. Because people will talk. Because—" She stopped. "Because I need boundaries between work and life, and living here would erase those completely." "The boundaries are already gone, Victoria." She looked at him, and something passed between them, recognition of a truth they'd both been avoiding. "I should go," she said quietly. "You always say that. You never actually want to." "Nathaniel, I'm not propositioning you. I'm offering a practical solution to your sister problem." "There is no practical solution to my sister problem. She's family. I deal with it." "Like I dealt with my loneliness by working 80-hour weeks?" Victoria stood up, gathering her things with sharp, angry movements. "That's not the same." "Isn't it? You're so busy fixing everyone else that you won't let anyone help you." "I don't need help. I need—" Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her face went pale. "What is it?" "Nothing. I have to go." She was out the door before Nathaniel could respond. He heard her car start in the driveway, tires spitting gravel as she accelerated too fast. Something was very wrong. Nathaniel pulled up her contact and called. It went to voicemail. He tried again, same result. Against his better judgment, he called his head of security, a man named Torres who'd worked for Hayes Technologies for 8 years. "I need you to do something discreet," Nathaniel said. "Victoria Reed, find out what just happened." Torres didn't ask questions. "Give me an hour." Nathaniel spent that hour pacing his study, ignoring the work emails piling up, trying to convince himself this was professional concern and not something else entirely. Torres called back in 47 minutes. "Her sister was arrested," he said. "DUI. Crashed her car into a parked vehicle on Broadway. No injuries, but she blew a .14. She's being held at the downtown station." Nathaniel was already grabbing his keys. "Send me the address." "Boss, maybe you should—" "Send me the address." He drove to the police station doing 20 over the speed limit, hands tight on the wheel. He found Victoria in the lobby, sitting on a plastic chair, staring at nothing. She looked up when he approached. "How did you know I was here?" "I have resources." "What happened?" "Rachel got drunk and decided to drive to a party. She's in a cell. They're processing her." Victoria's voice was flat. "The bail is $10,000. I have maybe 3 in my account. I'll handle it." "No." "Victoria, no." She stood up. "You don't get to fix this. This is my family. My problem." "Then let me help." "Why?" Her voice rose. "Why do you care? I'm an employee. This is personal." "You stopped being just an employee 5 minutes after you walked into my office." The words hung between them. A police officer approached. "Ms. Reed, your sister's asking for you." Victoria followed him back without another word to Nathaniel. Nathaniel sat in the plastic chair she'd vacated and made a call. "Jennifer, I need you to contact our legal team. Have someone get to the downtown police station immediately. There's a young woman named Rachel Reed being held on a DUI charge. I want her bail posted and the best criminal defense attorney in Denver on retainer." "Sir, is this company business?" "It's my business. Handle it." He hung up and waited. Victoria emerged 20 minutes later looking destroyed. "Rachel's crying. She's scared. And she keeps saying she's sorry, like that makes it better. My legal team is handling the bail and getting her a lawyer. I told you not to, and I ignored you. She'll be released in an hour. Victoria stared at him. Why are you doing this? Because you've spent 3 weeks fixing my life. Let me return the favor. This isn't the same. No, it's worse. Because you actually care about your sister despite her making your life hell. I was just avoiding mine. Victoria sat down hard in the chair next to him. I don't know what to do with her. She won't listen. She won't grow up. She just keeps destroying everything she touches. How old were your parents when they died? The question seemed to surprise her. I was 23. Rachel was 17. Car accident. So you became her parent. Someone had to. And she resents you for it. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. How do you know that? Because Liam resented me after Catherine died. Still does sometimes. I became the enforcer, the rule maker, the person who said no. Not the parent he wanted, just the one he was stuck with. That's not... It is. And it's the same with Rachel. She lost her parents and got stuck with a sister who had to act like a mother. That's not fair to either of you. Victoria wiped her eyes roughly. I can't just abandon her. I'm not suggesting you do, but maybe you need to let her fail on her own terms instead of catching her every time she falls. She'll crash harder. She's already crashing. You're just postponing the impact. They sat in silence, watching drunk college kids and petty criminals cycle through the station. Rachel was released at 11 p.m. She looked terrible, smeared makeup, bloodshot eyes, clothes that smelled like alcohol and shame. Vic, I'm so sorry. Not now, Victoria said quietly. Just get in the car. The drive back was silent. Nathaniel followed in his own car, making sure they got home safely. At Victoria's apartment building, Rachel stumbled toward the entrance without thanking either of them. Victoria stood next to Nathaniel's Mercedes, arms wrapped around herself. Thank you, she said, for coming, for the lawyer, for everything. You're welcome. I can't pay you back. I don't want you to. Consider it a bonus. She smiled slightly. A $10,000 bonus for 3 weeks of work? You've changed my life in 3 weeks. That's worth more than $10,000. Victoria looked at him in the dim parking lot light. This is getting complicated. I know. We should probably maintain professional boundaries. We should. Neither of them moved. I'm still not moving into your house, Victoria said. The offer stands anyway. Nathaniel, go take care of your sister. We'll talk tomorrow. He drove home trying not to think about how Victoria had looked standing there, exhausted and vulnerable, and still refusing to ask for help even when she desperately needed it. The next morning, Victoria didn't show up at 8 a.m., or 9, or 10. Nathaniel tried calling, no answer. By noon, he was worried enough to drive to her apartment. She answered the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair unbrushed, eyes red. What happened? He asked. Rachel left, packed her stuff and moved in with her boyfriend, said I was suffocating her and she didn't need a mom. Victoria? She's right. I've been trying to control her life because I can't control my own, so she left. Victoria's voice was eerily calm. I spent 6 years sacrificing everything to take care of her, and she left without even saying thank you. Nathaniel stepped inside without being invited. The apartment was small and cluttered, full of Rachel's abandoned things. What can I do? He asked. Nothing. There's nothing anyone can do. She sat on the couch. I'm fine. I just needed a day. You're not fine. Neither are you, but we both keep going anyway. He sat next to her. Take the day. Take the weekend. I'll be here Monday. The house will survive without you for 48 hours. Victoria leaned back, closing her eyes. I've never been good at taking time off. I've noticed. They sat in silence. Outside the window, Denver traffic hummed, normal life continuing while theirs fell apart in slow motion. Can I tell you something? Victoria said quietly. Anything. I'm jealous of you and Liam. Nathaniel blinked. What? You have this chance to fix things with your son, to rebuild. Rachel won't even talk to me. I lost her, and I don't know how to get her back. You didn't lose her. She's just angry and young and making terrible decisions. Give her time. How much time? However long it takes. Victoria opened her eyes. You've gotten annoyingly wise in 3 weeks. I had a good teacher. Flatterer. Truth teller. She smiled slightly. I should shower. I smell like failure. You smell fine. Liar. Nathaniel stood. I meant what I said. The room at my house is available whenever you want it. No pressure, just an option. Why are you being so nice to me? Because you've been nice to my son. And to me. And because... He stopped. Because what? Because when I look at you, I see someone who understands what it's like to keep fighting even when you want to give up. And that's rare. Victoria looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You should go. Will you be okay? Eventually, maybe, I don't know. He left, but texted her every few hours to check in. She responded with single-word answers that told him nothing and everything. Monday morning, Victoria showed up at the mansion at exactly 8 a.m., looking professionally put together but fragile underneath. Liam hugged her immediately. Mrs. Chen said you had a bad weekend. Something like that. Want to help me with my solar system project? Building stuff helps when you're sad. Victoria glanced at Nathaniel, who shrugged. He's not wrong. They spent the afternoon in the garage building a model solar system with LED lights and hand-painted planets. Liam chattered constantly, filling silence with facts about Jupiter's moons and Saturn's rings. Nathaniel watched from the doorway, seeing Victoria slowly relax as she focused on helping his son create something. Your dad's staring, Liam whispered. I can hear you, Nathaniel said. You're supposed to be working, Victoria called without looking up. I delegated. Progress. That evening, after Liam went to bed, they sat on the back patio, drinking wine and pretending the November cold wasn't bothering them. Rachel texted, Victoria said. She wants her stuff. Are you going to respond? I don't know. Part of me wants to tell her to come get it herself. Part of me wants to apologize, even though I didn't do anything wrong. Do neither. Give yourself permission to be angry. I don't do angry well. Neither do I. But we're both learning. Victoria looked at him in the patio light. When did you become someone I actually like talking to? Probably around the same time you stopped being terrifying. I was never terrifying. You called my life a disaster in our first meeting. It was a disaster. Still is in many ways, just a more manageable disaster now. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their breath fog in the cold air. I'll take the room, Victoria said suddenly. What? The offer. I'll take it, just temporarily, until I figure out my housing situation without Rachel. Nathaniel tried not to smile. When do you want to move in? Is this weekend too soon? This weekend is perfect. Victoria moved in on Saturday with 2 suitcases and a box of books. Nathaniel had the guest suite prepared. Bedroom, private bathroom, small sitting area. More space than her entire apartment. This is too much, she said, standing in the doorway. It's just empty rooms, might as well use them. Liam helped her unpack, chattering about how cool it was that she was staying with them. Mrs. Chen made her favorite tea without being asked. That night at dinner, takeout Chinese because nobody felt like cooking, it felt dangerously close to normal. Like they were a family instead of broken people held together by contracts and circumstance. Victoria, Liam said, picking at his fried rice. Are you going to stay forever? The question hung in the air. I don't know about forever, she said carefully, but I'm here now. That's what adults say when they're going to leave. Liam, Nathaniel started. No, he's right. Victoria looked at the boy seriously. I can't promise forever, but I can promise I won't disappear without warning. If things change, you'll know. Deal? Liam considered this. Deal. After dinner, Nathaniel found Victoria on the back patio again, wrapped in a blanket against the cold. You didn't have to promise him anything, he said. Yes, I did. He's lost too many people who made promises they didn't keep. So have you. Exactly, which is why I won't do that to him. Nathaniel sat next to her. This is getting complicated. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. Victoria turned to look at him. What are we doing, Nathaniel? I don't know, but whatever it is, I don't want to stop. Before she could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his expression went dark. I have to take this. He walked inside, answering curtly. Victoria watched through the window as he paced, his body language shifting into Ice King mode, rigid, controlled, dangerous. When he came back outside 10 minutes later, he looked like he wanted to put his fist through something. "What happened?" Victoria asked. "Damien Cross is filing a lawsuit against you." The blood drained from her face. "What?" "He's claiming you stole intellectual property when you left your previous company and used it to rebuild Meridian Solutions. He's demanding restitution and damages." "That's insane. I built everything from scratch." "I know, but he's got a lawyer and he's making noise to the business press. There's an article coming out tomorrow in the Denver Post." Victoria stood up, the blanket falling. "How do you know all this?" "My legal team monitors business filings. They flagged it an hour ago. This will destroy my reputation. Everything I rebuilt, we'll fight it. I can't afford lawyers for something like this." "You don't have to. My legal team will handle it." "Nathaniel, I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything. I'm choosing to help. There's a difference." Victoria paced, her hands shaking. "Why is he doing this? It's been over a year. I thought he was gone." "Because he found out you're working for me, and he sees an opportunity." She stopped. "What do you mean?" "Damien Cross is a vindictive bastard who spent months embezzling from your company. Now he sees you connected to a billionaire and thinks he can extort a settlement." "You looked into him." "Of course I did." Victoria sank into her chair. "I can't deal with this right now." "You don't have to. Not alone." She looked at him with eyes full of fear and exhaustion. "He's going to win. He has money and lawyers, and he's willing to lie. And I have more money, better lawyers, and I don't lose. This isn't your fight." "Yes, it is. Because he's coming after you and you're—" Nathaniel stopped. "I'm what?" The word hung between them, unspoken but understood. Family, friend, something more. "You're under my protection," he said finally, "and I don't let people hurt what's mine." Victoria didn't sleep that night. She lay in the guest bedroom staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of Nathaniel's house settling around her, trying not to think about Damien Cross and everything he could still take from her. At 3 a.m., she gave up and went downstairs to make tea. Nathaniel was already in the kitchen. "Can't sleep either?" he asked, looking up from his laptop. "How'd you guess?" "I heard you pacing." He closed the computer. "Come here. Sit." Victoria sat at the kitchen island while he poured her tea from the pot he'd already made. They sat in silence for a while. Two insomniacs finding strange comfort in shared exhaustion. "The article comes out in 6 hours," Victoria said finally. "I know. Everyone will think I'm a fraud." "Let them think it. We'll prove otherwise." "You sound very confident for someone who wasn't there when I built my company." Nathaniel looked at her steadily. "I don't need to have been there. I know you." "You've known me for 3 weeks. Sometimes 3 weeks is enough." Victoria wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "Tell me about Catherine." The request surprised him. "Why?" "Because you never talk about her, and I think you need to." Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. "She was everything I wasn't. Warm, open. She made friends in grocery store lines, laughed at bad jokes, saw the best in everyone." "Sounds exhausting." He smiled slightly. "Sometimes it was. She'd drag me to parties where I didn't know anyone, make me talk to strangers, force me out of my comfort zone constantly." "Did you love her?" "Yes, but not the way I should have." The admission seemed to cost him something. "I loved that she made life easier, that she handled the emotional labor I was terrible at, that she created a home while I built a company. That's still love. It's a version of it, but I don't think I ever really saw her as a full person, just as my wife. Liam's mother, the woman who made everything work." Victoria understood what he wasn't saying. "And when she died, everything stopped working." "Yeah." "Do you feel guilty about it? How you loved her?" "Every single day." Nathaniel refilled his coffee. "I keep thinking if I'd been a better husband, maybe she wouldn't have been on that trip. Maybe she'd have been home. That's not how car accidents work." "I know, but grief isn't logical." They sat with that truth between them. "Damien told me he loved me," Victoria said quietly. "Right up until the day I discovered he'd been stealing. Then he said I was too controlling, too ambitious, too focused on work. Like he hadn't known exactly who I was when he proposed." People blame you for their own failures. Is that what Catherine did? No. She just asked me to be present, and I kept choosing work instead. Nathaniel looked down at his coffee. The last thing she said to me was, "I'll see you next week." I was on a conference call. I said okay, without looking up. Didn't even kiss her goodbye. Victoria reached across the island and took his hand. "You didn't know." "That doesn't make it better." "No, but it makes it human." They held hands in the pre-dawn darkness, two people carrying guilt that would never fully leave them. "I'm scared," Victoria admitted, "of what Damien's lawsuit will do, of losing everything again." "I won't let that happen." "You can't promise that." "Watch me." The Denver Post article hit at 9 a.m. Victoria read it on her phone while Nathaniel made calls to his legal team in the study. The headline was brutal: "Tech consultant accused of theft by former partner." The article detailed Damien's claims that Victoria had stolen proprietary code, poached clients, and used confidential information to rebuild her company after their split. It painted her as vindictive and unethical, someone who'd burned bridges and stolen secrets when things didn't go her way. There was a quote from Damien that made her stomach turn. "I trusted Victoria with everything. Our company, our future, our relationship. She destroyed all of it out of spite and greed." The comments section was already filling with judgment from people who'd never met her. Victoria set the phone down before she threw it. Mrs. Chen appeared with breakfast. "You need to eat." "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway. You'll need your strength." Liam wandered in, still wearing pajamas. "Why does Victoria look sad?" "Adult problems," Mrs. Chen said quickly. "Is someone being mean to you?" Liam asked Victoria directly. She tried to smile. "Something like that." "You should tell my dad. He's really good at fixing mean people." "Your dad is already helping." "Good." Liam sat next to her and started eating cereal. "When people were mean to me at my old school, it felt really lonely. But it's better when someone's on your side." Victoria felt her throat tighten. "You're a smart kid, you know that? Everyone says that. I think it's just because I read a lot." Nathaniel emerged from his study looking like he'd aged 5 years in an hour. "My legal team wants to meet with you this afternoon," he said. "They're building a counter case." "Based on what?" "Damien has his version of events, and we have the truth. Plus financial records, timestamps, client testimonials, everything we need to prove you built Meridian Solutions from nothing. He'll have fake evidence. He's good at lying. And I'm better at destroying liars." Nathaniel's voice went cold. "Trust me on this." The meeting with the legal team happened at Hayes Technologies headquarters. 3 attorneys, all expensive, all intimidating, sat across from Victoria, asking detailed questions about her relationship with Damien, the company timeline, every possible angle of the case. Victoria answered mechanically, reliving the worst period of her life in clinical detail. "Did you sign a non-compete?" one lawyer asked. "No, Damien refused to put anything in writing, said it showed we didn't trust each other." "Smart. That works in our favor." "Did you have access to company accounts?" another asked. "Yes, but I never touched them after I discovered the embezzlement. I documented everything and turned it over to the authorities." "Do you have proof of that?" "Email timestamps, bank statements, police reports." The lead attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen, smiled for the first time. "Then we have everything we need." After 2 hours, Victoria was drained. Nathaniel walked her to his office and closed the door. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "I feel like I'm being interrogated for crimes I didn't commit." "They're just being thorough." "I know. But reliving all of it." She sat down heavily. "I thought I was past this. Turns out you never really get past betrayal. You just learn to ignore it until someone forces you to look at it again." Nathaniel leaned against his desk. "Patricia thinks we can get the case dismissed within 3 months. Possibly sooner if Damien's evidence is as flimsy as she suspects. 3 months of my name being dragged through the media. 3 months of us fighting back." "Why are you doing this?" Victoria asked suddenly. "Really? You barely know me. This is costing you time and money and resources." "Because he's attacking you to get to me, and I don't let people use the ones I care about as leverage." "The ones you care about?" "Yes." Victoria looked at him carefully. This is getting really complicated, Nathaniel. I know. We should probably talk about it. We should. Neither of them moved. Victoria. His desk phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again. Answer it, Victoria said. It might be important. Nathaniel grabbed the phone with visible frustration. What? His expression changed as he listened. When? Pause. How bad? Longer pause. I'll be right there. He hung up and looked at Victoria. Damien is holding a press conference. Right now, downtown. They drove to the press conference location, a hotel conference room downtown, in tense silence. Nathaniel's driver Marcus navigated through traffic while Nathaniel made calls, his voice getting progressively colder with each conversation. Victoria watched the city pass outside the window, feeling dissociated from reality. This couldn't be happening. She'd rebuilt her life carefully, brick by brick, and Damien was trying to demolish it all over again. The hotel lobby was packed with journalists and cameras. Nathaniel took her hand as they pushed through the crowd. Don't say anything, he murmured. Not a single word. I wasn't planning on it. They slipped into the back of the conference room just as Damien took the podium. Victoria hadn't seen him in over a year. He looked the same, handsome in a calculated way, expensive suit, practiced smile, the kind of man who charmed investors and fooled partners, the kind of man who told her he loved her while emptying their bank accounts. Thank you all for coming, Damien said smoothly. I know this is an unusual step, but I felt it was important to speak publicly about the theft and betrayal perpetrated by my former business partner, Victoria Reed. Victoria felt Nathaniel's hand tighten on hers. Damien continued, painting a picture of himself as the victim, a trusting entrepreneur destroyed by an ambitious woman who stole his work and his clients. He spoke about betrayal and corporate espionage, about sleepless nights and financial ruin. It was a masterful performance. Several journalists were actually taking notes sympathetically. Victoria Reed is now working for Nathaniel Hayes of Hayes Technologies, Damien said, looking directly at them in the back of the room. I can only assume she's using the same tactics there that she used to destroy our company. Mr. Hayes should be very careful about who he trusts. The room erupted in questions. Cameras swiveled toward Nathaniel and Victoria. Nathaniel stepped forward before Victoria could stop him. I have a statement, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. The room went silent. The Ice King was speaking, and everyone wanted to hear it. Damien Cross is a liar and a thief, Nathaniel said calmly. He embezzled over $200,000 from his own company, betrayed his business partner, and disappeared when his crimes were discovered. Now he's attempting to rewrite history by attacking the woman who built everything he destroyed. Damien's face went red. That's defamation. It's truth. And I have documentation to prove it. Nathaniel pulled out his phone. My legal team spent the weekend compiling evidence, bank records showing systematic fund transfers to Damien's personal accounts, client testimonials confirming Victoria's integrity, police reports detailing his fraud. You have no right. I have every right to defend someone who's being slandered. Nathaniel's voice went deadly quiet. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to drop this frivolous lawsuit. You're going to issue a public apology to Ms. Reed, and you're going to disappear back to whatever hole you crawled out of. Or what? Damien sneered. Or I'll use every resource at my disposal to destroy you. Legally, professionally, financially. I'll ensure every business contact you've ever had knows exactly what you are. I'll make it impossible for you to work in this industry again. Nathaniel smiled without warmth. I'm very good at ruining people who threaten what's mine. The room was dead silent. Damien's lawyer, a nervous man in an ill-fitting suit, whispered urgently in his client's ear. This isn't over, Damien said. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. Nathaniel turned and walked out, pulling Victoria with him. Cameras flashed. Journalists shouted questions. They ignored all of it. In the car, Victoria stared at Nathaniel in shock. Did that really just happen? She asked. Yes. You just publicly threatened to destroy him. Yes. That was... She struggled for words. That was insane and terrifying and possibly the most attractive thing I've ever seen. Nathaniel looked at her, surprise flickering across his face. Attractive? You defended me in front of everyone without hesitating. Of course I did. Nobody's ever done that before. The car felt suddenly smaller, more intimate. Victoria, Nathaniel started. I know, complicated. Very. We should probably not. Definitely not. But neither of them looked away. Marcus cleared his throat from the driver's seat. We're approaching the house, sir. The spell broke. Victoria looked out the window, trying to process everything that had just happened. Inside the mansion, Mrs. Chen was waiting with Liam. I saw the press conference, she said. The whole thing is already online. How bad? Victoria asked. Depends on perspective. Some people think Mr. Hayes was heroic. Others think he was aggressive and overstepped. I was both, Nathaniel said. I don't particularly care which narrative wins. Liam looked between them. Did you beat the bad guy, Dad? Not yet, but we're going to. Cool. That evening, the story exploded across social media and business news. The video of Nathaniel's confrontation with Damien went viral. People had opinions, strong ones, about whether he'd been defending an employee or overstepping professional boundaries. Victoria tried not to read the comments. She failed. Some defended her. Many didn't. The internet had decided she was either a victim or a villain, and there was no middle ground. She was reading particularly vicious comments on her phone when Nathaniel found her in the living room. Stop torturing yourself, he said, taking the phone from her hands. People think I'm using you, that I'm some kind of gold digger who manipulated her way into your life. People are idiots. They think we're sleeping together. Are we? The question hung in the air. No, Victoria said. Do you want to be? She looked at him, and the honesty in his eyes made her chest ache. I don't know. Maybe. But that would be a terrible idea. Probably. You're my boss. I'm living in your house. There's a power imbalance. You could quit. Move out. I could. Will you? No. Nathaniel sat next to her on the couch. So where does that leave us? Stuck in complicated limbo. I'm okay with complicated. Are you? Because 3 months ago you were standing at your office window seriously considering whether anyone would notice if you disappeared. Now you're publicly threatening to destroy people who hurt me. That's a pretty dramatic shift. You're the one who forced that shift. I didn't force anything. I just told you the truth about your life. And that changed everything. Victoria drew her knees up to her chest. I'm scared, Nathaniel. Of what? Of this. Whatever this is. Because it feels important, and I have a history of important things exploding in my face. So do I. Then why are we doing this? Because the alternative is going back to being half alive, and I'm done with that. They sat in silence, the admission settling between them. Damien called me, Victoria said quietly, an hour ago, from a blocked number. Nathaniel went very still. What did he say? That I made a mistake siding with you. That he knows things about me I wouldn't want public, that I should convince you to back off before things get ugly. Things are already ugly, and I don't back off. He sounded confident, like he has something planned. Let him plan. Patricia and my security team are 3 steps ahead of whatever he's thinking. Victoria wanted to believe him, but she'd underestimated Damien before, and it had cost her everything. Over the next week, Damien's lawsuit began falling apart. Patricia's team filed motions that systematically dismantled his claims. Client after client came forward confirming Victoria had never stolen anything, that she'd rebuilt her company through legitimate means. The police reports documenting Damien's embezzlement became public record. His credibility evaporated. The media narrative shifted. Damien became the villain, Victoria the sympathetic victim, Nathaniel the protective billionaire defending his consultant. It should have felt like winning. Instead, Victoria felt exposed. Every detail of her past was now public knowledge. Her failed engagement, her company's near bankruptcy, her sister's arrest. Everything she'd worked to keep private was being dissected by strangers online. I can't do this, she told Nathaniel one night after another brutal day of depositions. They were in his study, going over legal documents that made her head hurt. Yes, you can. I feel like I'm being torn apart. Then let me help hold you together. Victoria looked at him, this man who'd somehow become essential to her survival in a matter of weeks. Why do you care so much? She asked. Because when I look at you, I see someone who refuses to give up even when giving up would be easier. And that's rare. Or stubborn. Same thing. She smiled despite everything. You've gotten less cold, you know. The Ice King is melting. Your fault. I take full credit. Nathaniel stood and crossed to where she sat. He knelt in front of her chair, bringing them to eye level. I need to tell you something, he said. Okay. And you can't respond right away. Just listen. Victoria's heart started racing. Nathaniel, I'm falling in love with you. The words landed like bombs in the quiet room. I know the timing is terrible, he continued. I know we're in the middle of a lawsuit and you're living in my house and there are 1,000 reasons this is a bad idea, but I'm done pretending I don't feel it. Victoria couldn't breathe. You don't have to say anything back, Nathaniel said. I just needed you to know. Because you've changed my life. You've changed Liam's life. You've made this house feel like home again, and I'm terrified of losing that. Of losing you. Nathaniel, don't. Not yet. Just think about it. He stood and left the study, closing the door quietly behind him. Victoria sat alone in the expensive room, surrounded by legal documents and evidence of her past failures, and felt something crack open in her chest. She was falling in love with him too, and it was the most terrifying thing she'd ever admitted to herself. 3 weeks later, Patricia called with news. Damien's dropping the lawsuit, she said, barely concealing her satisfaction. His lawyer called this morning. They're withdrawing all claims and issuing a formal apology. Victoria was in the kitchen when she got the call. Nathaniel and Liam were making pancakes, badly, and the room smelled like burned batter and syrup. What made him quit? She asked. We found evidence he's been running a Ponzi scheme in California for the past year. He's facing actual criminal charges now. Our lawsuit is the least of his problems. So it's over. It's over. Congratulations, Ms. Reed. You won. Victoria hung up and looked at Nathaniel, who'd stopped flipping pancakes to watch her. He dropped it, she said. It's done. Liam cheered. Nathaniel crossed the kitchen and pulled her into his arms without asking permission. Victoria let herself be held, feeling the weight of the past 2 months finally lift. Thank you, she whispered against his chest. You're welcome. I mean it. You saved me. No, you saved yourself. I just provided resources. She pulled back to look at him. About what you said. In the study. You don't have to. I'm falling in love with you too. Nathaniel went very still. I tried not to, Victoria continued, because you're right, the timing is terrible, and this is complicated, and there are so many reasons it shouldn't work. But somewhere between homemade pizza and legal depositions, you became essential, and I don't know what to do with that. We could start by admitting it's real. It's real. And then we could see where it goes. What about Liam? What if this doesn't work and I end up hurting him? What if it does work and we end up building something real? They stood in the kitchen while pancakes burned on the griddle and Liam pretended not to be watching from the doorway. One step at a time, Victoria asked. One step at a time. Nathaniel kissed her then, gentle and careful, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. From the doorway, Liam made a gagging sound. Gross, adults kissing. They broke apart, laughing. Does this mean Victoria is staying forever? Liam asked. I don't know about forever, Victoria said, but definitely longer than 6 months. Good enough, Liam said, returning to his seat. Can someone fix the pancakes? They're on fire. They were. Smoke was filling the kitchen. Nathaniel grabbed the pan while Victoria opened windows. Mrs. Chen appeared with a fire extinguisher she didn't need to use but held ready just in case. It was chaotic and messy and imperfect. It was home. The burned pancakes became a running joke in the Hayes household. Every time someone messed up in the kitchen, which was often, because none of them were particularly good cooks, Liam would announce, "At least we didn't start a fire this time." It had been 6 months since that morning. 6 months since Victoria and Nathaniel stopped pretending their relationship was purely professional. 6 months of trying to figure out what it meant to build something real from broken pieces. It wasn't easy. Nathaniel still worked too much. Victoria still struggled to accept help. They fought about boundaries and expectations and the fact that living together while dating, while co-parenting made everything complicated in ways neither of them had anticipated. But they kept trying. You're doing it again, Victoria said one evening, finding Nathaniel in his study at 9 p.m., laptop open, conference call running. He held up one finger. Wait, She walked over and closed his laptop. Hey, you promised Liam you'd help him with his science fair project tonight. He's been waiting for 2 hours. I'll do it tomorrow. That's what you said yesterday. Nathaniel rubbed his face. I'm in the middle of closing a deal. You're always in the middle of closing a deal. That's the problem. They'd had this argument before. Multiple times. And every time Nathaniel would apologize, promise to do better, and then slide back into old patterns within days. I'm trying, he said. I know. But trying isn't the same as doing. Victoria left the study before the conversation could turn into another fight. She found Liam in his room, surrounded by poster board and solar system diagrams, looking resigned. Dad's not coming, is he? The boy asked. He's working. He's always working. Victoria sat on the edge of his bed. I know, and it sucks. But he's trying to change, and change is really hard for adults. Why is it hard? You just stop doing the bad thing and start doing the good thing. If only it were that simple. Because the bad thing has been his survival strategy for years. He doesn't know how to be okay without it. That's dumb. Yeah, it kind of is. Liam adjusted his solar system model. Are you guys going to break up? The question caught Victoria off guard. Why would you think that? Because you fight a lot, and Mom and Dad used to fight before she died. Then she left for that trip and never came back. Victoria felt her heart crack. Oh, Liam, your mom didn't leave because of fighting. That was just an accident, a terrible, random accident. But what if you leave too? What if you and Dad fight too much and you decide to go? She pulled him into a hug. I'm not going anywhere. Fighting doesn't mean leaving. It means we care enough to be honest with each other, even when it's hard. Promise? Victoria thought about all the broken promises in her life. Her parents promising they'd always be there. Damien promising forever. Rachel promising to grow up and then disappearing into her boyfriend's apartment without looking back. But she also thought about what she'd told Liam months ago, that she wouldn't disappear without warning, that he'd always know where things stood. I promise I'm not going anywhere, she said, even when your dad drives me crazy. Liam relaxed slightly. Can you help with my project instead? I need to paint Jupiter, and I'm really bad at painting. I'm also bad at painting, but we can be bad at it together. They spent the next hour making a mess of Jupiter. Too much red, not enough brown, the great red spot looking more like a misshapen blob than a storm. But Liam laughed the whole time, and that felt more important than accuracy. Nathaniel appeared in the doorway around 10:30. I'm sorry, he said to Liam. I got caught up in work and lost track of time. It's okay. Victoria helped me. It's not okay. Nathaniel came in and sat on the floor next to them. I promised I'd be here, and I wasn't. That's not acceptable. Liam looked surprised. Adults in his life rarely admitted fault so directly. Want to help with Saturn? The boy asked tentatively. I'd like that. They worked together until midnight, painting planets and stringing them on invisible wire. It was messy and imperfect, and the whole solar system tilted to one side, but Liam was beaming. After he finally went to bed, Victoria and Nathaniel sat in the kitchen drinking tea. Thank you, he said, for covering for me. Again. I wasn't covering for you. I was spending time with your son because he needed someone and you were busy. Right. So covering for me, Victoria set down her mug. Nathaniel, we need to talk. That phrase never leads anywhere good. I'm serious. This isn't working. He went very still. What do you mean? You keep promising to change and then defaulting to old patterns. You say Liam is your priority, but the second work calls, he disappears from your radar, and I'm stuck being the one who picks up the pieces. I know I'm not perfect. I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for present. Actually, fully present. Not just physically here while your mind is in Singapore or London or wherever the next crisis is. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You just don't want to do the hard work. Nathaniel's jaw clenched. That's not fair. I've changed more in the past 6 months than I have in 4 years. And it's still not enough. The words hung between them, brutal and honest. What are you saying? Nathaniel asked quietly. That you want to leave? I'm saying I can't be the only one trying to hold this together. I've spent my whole adult life propping up other people. My sister, my company, my relationship with Damien. I'm not doing that again. If we're going to make this work, you actually have to show up. I am showing up. Tonight you showed up at 10:30, after your son had already given up on you. That's not showing up. That's making an appearance. Nathaniel looked like she'd slapped him. So what do you want me to do? I want you to choose. Really choose. Not just say the words, but make the actual sacrifices required to prioritize your family over your company. I built that company from nothing, and it's successful enough to survive without you micromanaging every decision. You have executives and managers and people who are perfectly capable of handling things, but you won't let them because you're terrified of losing control. That's not... He stopped. Okay, maybe that's part of it. It's most of it. You're so scared of things falling apart that you're holding everything too tight, and you're strangling the life out of us in the process. They sat in silence. Outside the kitchen windows, Denver was dark and quiet. Catherine used to say the same thing, Nathaniel said finally, that I was trying to control everything because I was scared. I got angry at her for it, told her she didn't understand the pressure I was under. Did she? Probably more than I gave her credit for. She was a surgeon. She understood pressure. He looked down at his hands. The night before her trip, we had a fight. About me missing Liam's school play for a board meeting. She said I was choosing work over family, and I said she was being unreasonable. What happened? She left angry. I was too proud to apologize. And then she died, and I never got the chance to tell her she was right. Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. You can't change the past, but you can choose differently now. What if I can't? What if this is just who I am? Then we're going to have a serious problem, because I didn't fall in love with the Ice King. I fell in love with the man who makes terrible pancakes and helps his son build solar systems at midnight. That's who you are when you let yourself be. Nathaniel squeezed her hand. I'm scared of failing you, both of you. Then stop trying to be perfect and just be here. That's all we need. The next morning, Nathaniel called an emergency board meeting. Victoria wasn't there, but Mrs. Chen reported that half the executive team came by the house looking panicked. Jennifer, his assistant, called 3 times trying to get him to reconsider whatever he was planning. He ignored them all. When he came home at 2 p.m., early afternoon, which was unheard of, Liam was at school and Victoria was working on her laptop at the kitchen table. How'd it go? She asked. I'm stepping down as CEO. Victoria's hands froze over the keyboard. What? I told the board I'm transitioning to executive chairman. Richard is taking over as CEO. I'll still be involved in major decisions, but I'm done running the day-to-day operations. Nathaniel, I should have done it years ago. The company doesn't need me to survive, but my son does. And so do you. Victoria stood up. That's a huge decision. Are you sure? I'm terrified, but I'm also sure. He crossed to her. You were right. I've been using work to avoid feeling anything, and I'm done avoiding. What did the board say? Half of them thought I was having a breakdown. The other half looked relieved. Richard almost cried. Nathaniel smiled slightly. Turns out people have been wanting me to step back for a while, but were too scared to say it. And you're okay with it? Ask me in 6 months when the panic subsides. Victoria kissed him. I'm proud of you. Don't be. I'm literally just trying to be a functional human being. That counts as an achievement given where you started. Liam came home from school to find his father in the kitchen making after-school snacks. Why are you home? He asked suspiciously. I live here. Yeah, but you're never here when I get home from school. Well, I'm here now. Want to help me not burn grilled cheese? Liam looked at Victoria. Is this real? Or is he going to get a work call and disappear? I turned my phone off, Nathaniel said, showing the dark screen. Until dinner. No work, just us. Liam's face transformed. Really? Really. They made grilled cheese together, only slightly burned, and then spent the afternoon building with Legos while Victoria worked nearby. It was mundane and ordinary and exactly what they needed. Over the next few months, Nathaniel struggled with his new role. He had to learn to let go, to trust other people with his company, to resist the urge to micromanage from the sidelines. It wasn't smooth. He backslid constantly. Victoria had to physically remove his phone from his hands multiple times. Mrs. Chen developed a system where she'd confiscate his laptop if he tried to work during family time, but slowly he adjusted. He started coming to Liam's school events, started having conversations that didn't revolve around business metrics. started being present in a way he hadn't been in years. The change was awkward and uncomfortable and absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, Victoria's company started thriving. With Damien's lawsuit dismissed and her reputation restored, clients who'd been hesitant to work with her came back. She hired 2 new consultants and started turning down projects that didn't align with her values. Rachel reached out after 8 months of silence. The text came on a Tuesday morning. "Can we talk?" Victoria stared at her phone for 10 minutes before responding, "Sure, when?" They met at a coffee shop downtown. Rachel looked different, thinner, tired, but also more grounded somehow. "I've been in therapy," she said after they ordered, "for the past 4 months." "Oh. Yeah, turns out I have a lot of unprocessed grief about Mom and Dad." "Who knew?" Victoria smiled slightly. "Everyone but you, apparently." "Fair." Rachel stirred her coffee nervously. "I was really angry at you for a long time. For trying to parent me when you're supposed to be my sister. For having your life together when mine was falling apart. I didn't have my life together, Set. I know that now, but at the time it felt like you were perfect and I was a disaster. You were kind of a disaster. Still am, in many ways, but I'm working on it." Rachel looked up. "I'm sorry. For the DUI. For the parties. For taking advantage of you financially and emotionally. You deserved better." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. Are you still with that billionaire guy, the one who threatened to destroy your ex at that press conference?" "Nathaniel. And yes. Is he good to you?" "He's trying to be. We're both trying." "That's all you can ask for, I guess." Rachel hesitated. "I'm not asking to move back in or anything. I know I burned that bridge, but maybe we could do this sometimes. Coffee and talking." "I'd like that." They started meeting every other week. The conversations were stilted at first, both of them navigating years of resentment and hurt. But slowly, they found their way back to something resembling sisterhood. It wasn't perfect. Rachel still made questionable decisions. Victoria still struggled with letting her sister fail without rushing to fix things. But they were learning. 1 year after Victoria first walked into Nathaniel's office with a bruised wrist and desperate need for work, he took her back to that same terrible diner where they'd eaten burgers after Liam's school expulsion. "Why are we here?" she asked, sliding into the familiar cracked vinyl booth. "Because this is where I first realized I needed to change, and I wanted to show you how far we've come." They ordered the same thing, cheeseburgers and coffee that was still terrible, but this time Nathaniel actually ate his food instead of just staring at it. "Liam's therapist says he's doing really well," Victoria said. "The anxiety about abandonment is improving. Because you've actually stayed. We've both stayed. That's the point." Nathaniel reached across the table and took her hand. "I have something to ask you." "Okay. And you can say no. There's no pressure." "Nathaniel, you're making me nervous." He pulled out a small box from his jacket pocket. Victoria's breath caught. "I know this is fast," he said. "I know we've only been together a year and we're still figuring things out, and there are 1,000 reasons to wait. But I also know that you've changed my life in ways I didn't think were possible. You made me want to be better, made me believe I could be better." "Nathaniel, I'm not good at romantic speeches. I'm better at quarterly reports and hostile takeovers. But I love you. And I love who I am when I'm with you, and I want to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you." He opened the box. The ring was beautiful, simple, elegant, not ostentatious despite his wealth. "Victoria Reed, will you marry me?" She looked at him. This man who'd been so broken when they met, who'd learned to choose family over work, who made terrible pancakes and helped his son with science projects and defended her against anyone who tried to hurt her. "Yes," she said. Nathaniel's face broke into the most genuine smile she'd ever seen. He slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands. "Really? Really? But we're doing this differently than most people." "How so?" "No massive wedding, no society press. Just us and the people who matter." "I can work with that." They told Liam that night. He responded by asking if this meant Victoria was officially his mom now, or if he should call her something else. "What do you want to call me?" Victoria asked. He thought about it. "Can I just keep calling you Victoria? But like Victoria who's family instead of Victoria who's a consultant, that works for me. Cool. Can we have cake to celebrate? They had cake. Store-bought, because nobody trusted their baking skills yet. Mrs. Chen cried happy tears and insisted on planning the wedding even though Victoria said it would be simple. Simple and elegant are not mutually exclusive, Mrs. Chen said firmly. You're marrying into this family properly. The wedding happened 6 months later in the backyard of the mansion, under string lights and November stars. The guest list was small, fewer than 50 people. Rachel came with her new girlfriend and actually behaved herself. Nathaniel's executive team showed up looking confused that their former Ice King was smiling. Liam stood next to his father, wearing a suit he'd picked out himself, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Victoria wore a simple dress that cost less than Nathaniel's suit, but made her feel beautiful. When she walked down the makeshift aisle, just a path through the garden, Nathaniel looked at her like she'd hung the stars. The ceremony was short. The vows were personal and honest, full of promises about showing up and trying and loving each other through the hard parts. When they kissed, Liam cheered so loudly it startled the guests into laughter. The reception was chaotic in the best way. People danced badly. The catered food was too fancy, but everyone ate it anyway. Mrs. Chen gave a toast about watching this broken family learn to heal. Nathaniel's speech was terrible and perfect. I'm not good at this. Most of you know that. But Victoria taught me that being good at something isn't the point. Trying is the point. Showing up is the point. And I promise to keep showing up even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, Victoria cried. So did half the guests. That night, after everyone left and the cleanup was done and Liam was asleep upstairs, Victoria and Nathaniel sat on the back patio wrapped in blankets against the cold. We did it, she said. We did. Think we'll make it? I think we'll fight a lot and mess up constantly and struggle with balance for the rest of our lives. Nathaniel pulled her closer. But I also think we'll keep trying, and that's enough. 2 years later, they launched the Second Chances Foundation, a nonprofit helping struggling single parents start businesses and rebuild their lives after financial hardship. Victoria ran it with the same fierce determination she'd brought to saving her own company. Nathaniel provided funding and resources, but let her lead. They helped hundreds of people. Some succeeded, some failed, and had to try again. But every single one of them got the chance to rebuild. Liam thrived. He stopped getting into fights, started making friends, developed an obsession with astronomy that led to him giving presentations about black holes at family dinners until everyone begged him to stop. He still had hard days. Grief didn't disappear just because life got better. But he learned to talk about it instead of letting it consume him. Rachel got her life together slowly and imperfectly. She went back to school, broke up with the terrible boyfriend, and eventually started working for the foundation doing outreach to young people in crisis. Turns out being a disaster makes you good at relating to other disasters, she told Victoria. That's actually pretty insightful. Don't sound so surprised. Mrs. Chen retired at 65, but refused to actually leave. I raised that boy, she said, pointing at Liam. I'm not missing him grow up. So she stayed on part-time, cooking family dinners and offering unsolicited advice that usually turned out to be correct. Friday night pizza became sacred. No work, no phones, no distractions. Just family around a table, talking and laughing and being together. Some Fridays were easy. Others were hard. Fights about homework or money or the fact that Nathaniel still occasionally tried to sneak work emails during dinner. But they showed up for each other anyway. Because that's what healing looked like. Not perfection, but persistence. 5 years after Victoria first walked into Nathaniel's office, she found him in his study late one night. Not working, just sitting in the dark, looking at an old photo of Catherine. You okay? She asked from the doorway. Yeah, just thinking. About her? About how I wasted the time I had with her. How I took it for granted. He looked up at Victoria. I don't want to make that mistake again. You won't. You're different now. We're different now. Victoria sat next to him. Do you think she'd be okay with this? With us? Nathaniel considered the question. I think she'd be relieved. She always wanted me to be happy, to be present, to actually live instead of just existing. He smiled slightly. She'd probably like you a lot. You're both annoyingly honest. I'll take that as a compliment. It is one. They sat together in the quiet study, two broken people who'd learned to build something whole. Outside, Denver glittered in the darkness. Somewhere in the house, Liam was sleeping peacefully. Mrs. Chen was probably watching late-night television in her room. Rachel was texting about her latest date. Life continued, messy and imperfect and real. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough. Nathaniel stood and held out his hand. "Come on, let's go to bed. It's only 10:30. You used to work until 2 a.m. That person was an idiot who didn't know what he had. And now? Now I know exactly what I have, and I'm not wasting another minute of it." They walked upstairs together, past Liam's room where dinosaur pajamas were scattered on the floor, past the guest suite that Rachel sometimes crashed in when her apartment felt too lonely, past all the empty rooms that had once symbolized absence but now just meant space to grow. Their bedroom was warm and lived in, full of Victoria's books and Nathaniel's reading glasses and photos of their imperfect family. This was what second chances looked like. Not dramatic transformations or perfect endings, but small daily choices to show up and try and love each other through the mess. And sometimes, when you were very lucky and very persistent, those small choices added up to something that felt like home. Victoria fell asleep that night thinking about the scared, desperate woman who'd taken a consulting job from a stranger because she needed money, who'd walked into a billionaire's life expecting professional distance and found family instead. She'd come looking for survival and found something better. A reason to stay. A reason to build. A reason to believe that broken things could be whole again if you were willing to do the hard work of healing. The next morning, she woke up to Nathaniel trying to make breakfast quietly and failing spectacularly. Pans clattered. Something burned. Liam appeared in the kitchen asking why it smelled like smoke. "I'm making pancakes," Nathaniel announced. "You're making a disaster," Victoria said, appearing in yoga pants and one of his old t-shirts. "Same thing in this house." Liam laughed. "Can Victoria help before you burn the kitchen down again?" "I didn't burn it down the first time. I started a small, contained fire." "A fire is a fire, Dad." They cooked together, chaotic and messy, with too much smoke and not enough coordination. The pancakes came out lopsided and slightly raw in the middle. They ate them anyway. Because this was their life now. Imperfect and real, and built on foundations of honesty and persistence and the stubborn refusal to give up on each other. And as Victoria sat at that kitchen table, watching Nathaniel argue with his son about whether burnt edges counted as extra crispy, she realized something important. She'd spent years trying to fix everyone else's lives while her own fell apart. But fixing was never the point. Showing up was the point. Being present was the point. Loving people through their mess instead of trying to clean it up, that was the point. And for the first time in her life, Victoria Reed felt like she was exactly where she belonged. Not because everything was perfect, but because perfect was never the goal. The goal was home. And home, it turned out, was a mansion full of broken people learning to be whole together, one burned pancake at a time.